Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're taking a close look at the Northwest Ordinance. We'll be looking exclusively at a specific set of source documents to see exactly what they have to say about this ordinance, why it was created, and its mechanical role in American territorial expansion. We're relying purely on the text provided here, so let's just dive right in and see what's inside. Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with the background and purpose, move through territorial governance and the path to statehood, then hit on rights and protections, historical significance, and wrap up with a summary. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Background and Purpose. To really understand the purpose here, the documents lay out a super clear timeline. It goes like this. The American government came into existence through a very specific sequence. First, you have the unanimous Declaration of Independence in 1776. That's followed by battle, and ultimately a victory by force of arms over the British Empire by 1783. Well, once that victory was actually secured, westward progress initiated. And the specific vehicle for that progress? That was a territorial government process explicitly set forth in the Northwest Ordinance. Now, what's really fascinating here is who the texts say was actually leading that westward charge. The sources explicitly state that the British territorial government took the lead in exploration and initial settlement. And this wasn't an accident. According to the documents, it was actually the result of specific treaty provisions that completely mandated this arrangement. So that brings us right into Section 2, Territorial Governance. The sources make a very strict and frankly vital distinction here between two totally different types of entities. On the one hand, we have territorial states. The texts define these as temporary, ephemeral, administrative states established under non-conforming constitutions, beginning with Iowa back in 1846. And these were operated by British territorial federal subcontractors. On the other hand, you have actual states of the Union. These are described as permanent, organic states that are fully in possession of their inheritance. This creates a really unique dynamic. The texts actually describe these administrative territorial states as foreign, legal fiction entities. They only exist ephemerally while those British territorial federal subcontractors are temporarily in possession of the land assets. And this is strictly prior to their enrollment as actual official states of the Union. Which naturally leads us to ask, how does a territory actually transition into a permanent state? Let's move to Section 3, the path to statehood. So the sources lay out a strict three-step mechanical process that was preordained by the Northwest Ordinance. Step 1 provides a period of time where territorial authorities are exercised to protect, organize, and basically develop new states of the Union. Step 2 is the formal acceptance and enrollment of that territory as a new state of the Union by the already existing states. And Step 3, and this is a crucial point the documents really emphasize, upon this enrollment, the preceding territorial status is naturally superseded and just completely extinguished. Now, I want to explicitly clarify the boundaries of these texts. The source documents do not address any other processes or interpretations for achieving statehood. Literally none. They rely exclusively on this single specific mechanism, territorial protection, followed by enrollment, which then results in the absolute extinguishment of that territorial authority. Okay, with the mechanics covered, let's look at Section 4, Rights and Protections. To really illustrate the ordinance's impact on property, the documents point directly to an 1870 annual report from the Commissioner of the General Land Office. And there's a key quote that really stands out here. The leading incidents of feudalism were specially repealed. According to the texts, the celebrated Ordinance of 1787 fundamentally altered how land was held by literally repealing feudal tenures. So what replaces it? This new form of ownership is defined in the texts as allodial title. That means the entire transfer of ownership of the soil from the government. It represents absolute dominion. The sources go into some really fascinating detail here, noting that the term actually comes from the Teutons and the Old Norse word othala, which means ancestral inheritance. Under this concept, you make a pact with God to be a good caretaker of the land, completely independent of any feudal tenure. And get this, the sources note this specific protection was even enshrined in Wisconsin's first state constitution in 1848. All right, moving on to Section 5, Historical Significance. These source documents place massive weight on the Northwest Ordinance. They emphasize that because it is one of 4 organic laws underpinning our government from its modern beginnings, it absolutely must be obeyed in spirit and to the letter of the law. And because it's an organic law, the strict dissolution of territorial administrative states, once their process is actually complete, is presented as an absolute contractual requirement.
And this brings us to a highly specific timeline outlined in the texts. According to the documents, the enrollment of Alaska officially finalized the process mandated by the Northwest Ordinance. And because this process was completed, it triggered a preordained result. All territorial administrative states stood dissolved, effective October 1, 2020. Furthermore, the texts state that a formal extinguishment order was issued on September 9, 2025, essentially formalizing what was already required by the ordinance.
We've covered a lot of exact structure today, so let's head into Section 6, our summary. Just to do a quick recap of the core tenets we've explored from the sources. First, the ordinance utilized treaty provisions mandating British territorial exploration after 1783. Second, it established temporary territorial governance via British territorial federal subcontractors. Third, statehood enrollment permanently extinguishes that temporary territorial authority. Fourth, it guaranteed allodial land ownership, officially repealing feudalism. And finally, this entire historical process concluded with Alaska's enrollment, resulting in the complete dissolution of all territorial administrative states by October 2020. So I'll leave you with this final thought. How does understanding these strict mechanical steps of territorial extinguishment and this guarantee of allodial title shape your understanding of the historical narrative of American statehood? It's definitely a fascinating question derived directly from the legal and historical structures we've explored today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.